I refuse to pick up my fiance's kid because I feel excluded.
The children are suffering me because you won't invite me to jump on your trampoline.
I, 26 female Jessica,
Suffering from children.
have been engaged to my fiance, 26 male John, for 3 years. I have always been very involved in my stepson's 9 life since meeting him. This includes school pickup and drop off due to my fiance working longer hours than I do. This has been a routine for at least the last 2 years, as well as the arguments that ensue with his mother, 25 female Ellie, and her partner, 26 female Whitney. By the way, this comes from Destiny Y, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OKStorytime subreddit. So, the reasoning for arguments with her always were initiated by the most insignificant of things, but always well-timed to create a diversion. For example, having a full-blown meltdown that his father and I haven't gotten him a winter coat. It's 55 degrees out. Anyway, to get to know how I'm the a-hole, today John came in to tell me about how he got a text from Whitney stating that the kiddo tested positive for COVID. He asked me if I could work from home tomorrow to watch him. I told him that I couldn't because I had several appointments already scheduled that are time sensitive. He told me that was fine. Before walking away, I asked John if he could respond to the message via Ellie rather than reply back to Whitney. I asked him this because I have been blocked by Ellie for over a month. She refuses to speak to me over a Facebook post that I shared. However, Ellie is not the parent at the home that communicates with either of us. In the last month, Whitney, who's essentially a stepmom just like I am, has been to my home to ground the kiddo from games due to his grades and behavior without giving John or I any notice. So yes, maybe petty, but I digress. Later in the evening, I asked John if he actually sent the text to Ellie, to which he responded, "No, I just don't really want to deal with that tonight," which I do see is fair. They're unbearable. But then I asked him why he lied to me and couldn't just talk to me about it, being that this is the second time he has lied to me to avoid the conversation of how I feel about all of this. I've explained to him that I feel isolated and that they're all excluding me out of a lot of things with my stepson. But I'm expected to do all of the drop-off, pickup, homework, help, and sports practice, homework, and sports because I was a college athlete and took elementary education, so it's more natural. John still said he didn't want to talk about it, but before bed, the conversation came back up again. This time, he said that he will just stop talking to me about when Ellie or Whitney reach out to him because he doesn't want to talk about it. Being that I've expressed to him that I feel isolated, that definitely started the waterworks, but I explained that I feel like he's making me feel worse by ensuring that I'm not being talked to, unless it's an emergency, because then I really feel like I'm just being used. John said if I felt like that, then he would get a babysitter and someone for pickup and drop off, to which I responded, go ahead. That is super not what OP's asking at all. It seems like that's like OP's like, this is really hurting me. And he's like, fine. You don't even have to do that then.
Like, fine, I'll exclude you more.
John says that I'm the a-hole and I feel like he's ganging up on me with Ellie and Whitney. So am I the a-hole? And there is an update. I don't think so. I think that you absolutely, it seems like you are being excluded from things. And also your husband is not even listening to you. Thank you all for the feedback and suggestions. I received a lot of questions asking why I'm with John, which is reasonable, but y'all don't have the full story on us and that's okay. Anyway, the clarification on the Facebook post. Thank you. The post said, be kind and mature when dealing with unintelligent people.
Okay.
About 3 days after sharing that, my stepson came over and said that his mom was so mad at me and that she was annoyed with me.
It's crazy to see someone's post being like, hey, like basically just like, don't get angry at people that you don't agree with.
I told him that I hadn't talked to his mom, but I'd call her because I'm not mad at her. Well, Ellie and Whitney both had me blocked when I called. That's ridiculous.
Damn.
After talking to the kid for a little, he said Ellie and Whitney were very upset about the post and complaining to him for days. That's ridiculous.
Were they though?
The following day was also a day that I had to pick him up from school, but he wasn't on the bus. Ellie had picked him up and took him home. However, I had no idea because I was blocked and I had no way to get a hold of Ellie, Whitney, or my stepson. I had to call my fiance, to call Ellie, to call Whitney, to call his grandmother to see where he was. Whitney dropped him off with his grandmother. That's incredibly dangerous. That absence resulted in several missing assignments for the kiddo. He came back the next day, John and I's weekend, with 6 extra pages of homework from not going to school the day before. And that is how we got to Whitney visiting our home unannounced to lecture him about school and behavior. Details. For context, I wanted to get on and say that I understand that it seems like I'm being used. My issue is not picking up or dropping my stepson off. I love kids, and my involvement was discussed at the beginning. My issue is that I have told John that them doing this and him allowing them to leave me out of things when I do a lot of work for all 3 of them leaves me feeling isolated.
Fair. Super fair.
Yeah. I also expressed that it was frustrating to have been a teacher and a counselor, and I'm being left out of things that I may be able to help with.
Dang.
After talking with him last night, here's his side. He said that he's been dealing with Ellie for 9 years. She's manipulative, lazy, a compulsive liar, and all around a difficult person. All very true. He says that if he says anything to her, that it will just result in her calling, screaming until she has it all out, and then will block John as well, at least until it's our day with the kiddo. He says that it is pointless to talk to Ellie or Whitney because they are both so rational and will block all communication. John says that I am putting unnecessary stress on him because I should see by now that Ellie is never going to change. More context, Ellie and Whitney have had a few DV calls to their home with my stepson there. Why can't we get custody?
It's time to go to the courts and record
custody?
some of these conversations of her blowing up at you and blocking you. And then you go, hey, I can't have access to my son. I can't communicate.
It's really dangerous.
Make changes.
She also has always been unemployed, and she has no structure for her child in the home. He's sleeping on the couch at Ellie's because he says that the animals have trashed his room, which is also a thing that you can get custody for. They're supposed to have a proper living space for their child.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a temp check to be like, should we fight for custody
Absolutely.
or not?
Although she may not change, I don't think that is a reason to avoid conversation about how I feel as a stepmother and partner. However, John says that it's better to just let her do whatever she wants and try her best to ignore it. And hopefully the kid will see when he's older who is there for him. What?
They're just like, I know people who are reluctant to get CPS involved in situations where it's not like explicitly, because, you know, sometimes and then it's, you know.
But I would think after the DV calls, I'd be like, custody?
Yeah.
Custody?
For sure.
I'll be like, oh, my kid's not safe. Update 2. First, I want to say thank you all for the insight. Some of you have definitely opened my eyes to things I didn't see. However, I also know that this is the internet and you have a sliver of 3 years to base your opinion off. Although appreciated, some are pretty harsh. I'll start with clarifications. First, I want to make it clear that Whitney is not biomom. She is the partner of biomom Ellie. I also want to point out that Ellie does not communicate with any of us, really. She misses school calls, confirmations of doctor appointments, and endless other things that she doesn't think requires her attention. I think this makes it a little more bothersome for me because neither Whitney or Ellie can talk to me. But John has no other choice but to communicate with Whitney because Ellie simply won't. Second, Child Protective Services have been called. The police have been called and nothing has been done regarding their custody agreement. To add to this, John knows that our home is a better home for him and wants to go to court. However, we are not rich, either of us by any means, and we are currently in the process of trying to buy a home. John's plans right now, at least he says, buy a home and then go to court for joint custody. At this time, full custody doesn't seem feasible considering reports made to Child Services have no real resolution. Now to the update, which isn't much, but I feel like the clarification was necessary. John called this morning. He said that he didn't like that I was upset about all of this and didn't know what to do. He said that he feels as if there is nothing to talk about. He says that we get him far more often than he is scheduled to ensure his safety, so that makes him feel better. He says that the feelings I, Jessica, have are just to begin an argument, which I don't think is the case, but I guess I can see somehow that makes sense to him. He agreed to talk about things when he comes home from work today, so I guess I will be updating following our talk. Thank you all again for your thoughts and perspectives. And there is a third update.
I like what direction we're heading in.
Yeah, you're having a conversation.
I like it.
But there is a third update, so let's get into it. Thanks so much for all the support, suggestions, and perspectives. This helped John and I have a really great conversation. Here is the update. John came home from work and we got right into it. He apologized for stating that he was going to get a babysitter. John has a lot of previous trauma from other relationships and said that he notices now that he was defensive before even really hearing what I had to say. John and I agreed that it's best to not bring up anything at this time, as stepson is at Ellie and Whitney's tonight, and they tend to say that we will not see him and block us. I don't want to go through that either because I have plans with him tomorrow.
Like, is that in and of itself not enough to do something?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is that not illegal? Like, could you not be like, they're trying to like kidnap?
Like, I don't even know if you need a lawyer for that. That's like so like, hey, like I have some problems with like, we need to have a discussion about what we're doing with our child. Blocked. You'll never see him again.
That's like kidnapping.
It's like, I think you might be able to win over some hearts and minds with that.
John said on Wednesday, following pickup, he will call Ellie, which she probably will not answer, and ask to speak with her and Whitney about our communication. He agreed to bring up a parenting app. Thanks to you all, I really had no idea they existed. John said that he finds it ridiculous that they act this way, and also apologized for making me feel isolated so that he could feel better by avoiding it. He said that it is easier for him because Ellie and Whitney are so difficult. John and I also discussed how discussions with he and Ellie went in the past and explained why he feels the way he feels. Context. John took Ellie to court at 17 because she blocked him on everything and refused to answer the door when he would come to see his son. He missed out on the first few months of his son's life waiting to go to court so that he could have rights to his son. How is that legal? How did they not?
I wonder where they are. This doesn't sound like the States.
John is afraid that she will take him, block him on everything, and we will have to wait for the court date to see him again, as CPS and law enforcement have done nothing but document for the past 2 years.
But if you have 2 years of documentation of her acting this way, like
does that not help at all?
How does she have primary custody?
However, John is getting information together for joint custody at minimum, but possibly more. Maybe they have primary custody.
There was a little tidbit in there about how he was like, oh, well, we already get to see him more than we normally do, so I don't want to like. So I think he doesn't even have primary custody. It's just the wife is like, or the ex-wife is just like, I don't even care, whatever. You can have him for a whole 2 weeks. I don't care.
This year, the kiddo stayed at our house 74 more days than he was scheduled to, so hopefully that helps us in the long run of things. Again, not knowing how Reddit really works, I'm going to add this to my original post. And edit, I'm seeing a lot about this post being very John-based. It's supposed to be. This is the other side of the conversation. People were so invested when it was jump on John, but now they have his idea of things. It's too much. This edit was just to round out the conversation and make things less one-sided and give the full scope of the situation. And clarification, totally my bad for not putting the resolution to our conversation in the update. All in all, John said I won't feel that way again. We agreed to talk about our feelings during and after interactions with Ellie and Whitney as a check-in for John and I. John has also agreed to at least make an effort to communicate to them during times that I do feel uneasy, uncomfortable, whatever. My issue is not how he addresses things. It's that he avoids them. Naturally, I don't really care if there is confrontation or not. I'm just not bothered by it. However, John is very non-confrontational, so we discussed how he will make an effort. Maybe not in the way that I would, but it's an effort. And in our situation, we can't focus on the reciprocation of what he says because Whitney and Ellie are lunatics. And I think final update. Hello for everyone invested. This is a general update because, as expected, we hit a bump. I picked the kid up. After I picked him up, I let his dad know that I had him because he is still at work. He called Ellie, no answer. As I'm pulling out of the parking lot, Whitney drives by and my stepson sees her. He asked me to call her. Great timing. I was blocked. That just doesn't make sense to me, to block a person who is taking care of your child. Doesn't make sense.
Well, you're not Whitney.
Yeah.
You'll never be Whitney.
But you know what does make sense? Listening to full episodes with stories just like this, just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio and search up OK Storytime. I called John to let him know that I couldn't get a hold of Whitney. He called Whitney and Ellie with no answer. He called Ellie's mom to see if she had talked to Ellie or Whitney, and she said that she would text them to see. 2 minutes later, my phone is ringing. It's John. He said that Whitney called him saying that he crossed a boundary by calling Ellie's mom. Whitney said that she no longer lives in the home, so she no longer needs to be contacted at all. They told John that if he agreed to that, then she and Ellie would agree to unblock me. John's home now and has called them each several times to try and talk to them or have some sort of conversation. We are at a standstill. And that is the end of that story.